Caitlin Clark is known for being fierce on the court, but her recent comments directed toward the WNBA have people talking for reasons beyond basketball. Clark, one of the brightest young stars in women's basketball, took issue with her upcoming suspension, and she didn't hold back. While fans know her for her sharp shooting and intensity, few expected her to step into the spotlight with such bold criticism. However, it seems the Iowa standout has added a bit of fire off the court too. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. The incident leading to her suspension wasn't the typical foul-up or temper flare you might see in high-stakes games. It was more subtle, an accumulation of smaller moments that eventually snowballed into a situation the league felt warranted punishment. Yet, Clark's frustration wasn't just with the suspension itself. It was with how it was handled and the broader implications for the league. She hammered home her points, addressing what she perceived as inconsistency and a lack of fairness.
Honestly, a really great game, and like you said, this crowd was absolutely incredible.
And with that, the sports world took notice. Clark is no stranger to the limelight, but this was different. This wasn't about a game-winning shot or a record-breaking performance. It was about her standing up for herself and, by extension, other players who may feel similarly constrained by the rules. It's a side of Clark we don't often see, defiant, outspoken, and ready to push back against authority. Her remarks were clear, sharp, and unapologetic, showing that she's not just a player but someone willing to challenge the very system she operates in. For those who have followed her career, this isn't entirely shocking. Clark has always been intense, with a demeanor that screams confidence and a bit of swagger. It's what makes her such a compelling player to watch. When she's on the court, there's an aura about her that commands attention. She plays with a chip on her shoulder, and that same attitude seemed to spill over into her recent comments. There's no denying that she's a competitor through and through, and in this case, her competitive spirit was aimed directly at the league's decision-makers. What makes this whole situation more interesting is the timing. Clark is at the peak of her popularity, having just come off an incredible season with Iowa. She's being hailed as the future of women's basketball, someone who could change the game, elevate it to new heights. Yet here she is, facing a suspension that could potentially slow down her momentum. The frustration is understandable. For a player who thrives on rhythm and momentum, anything that disrupts that is bound to feel like an injustice. Her comments, though, went beyond just her individual situation. Clark touched on a broader concern that many players, both current and aspiring, have about the WNBA. She questioned the fairness of the league's disciplinary actions and hinted at a need for reform. It's one thing to be frustrated about a personal issue, but it's another to address what you see as systemic problems. That's where Clark's words hit the hardest. She didn't just make it about her. She made it about the integrity of the sport. What's particularly intriguing about Clark's stance is how it aligns with her personality. She's always been a fighter. Whether it's battling through tough defenses or taking on bigger, more experienced players, she's never backed down. So when she feels something's not right, it's only natural that she would speak up. There's an authenticity to her frustration, a sense that she genuinely believes in what she's saying. And that's what makes this moment so significant. It's not just a player venting, it's someone who believes the system needs to change. Some might view her comments as bold, even risky. After all, calling out the very league you're a part of isn't something players do every day. But if there's anyone who can pull it off, it's Clark. Her star power is undeniable, and she knows it. The WNBA knows it too. It's not a stretch to say that she's one of the biggest draws in women's basketball right now. So when she speaks, people listen. And that's precisely why her comments are causing such a stir. The suspension itself is almost secondary at this point. What's really making waves is the way Clark has positioned herself as not just a player, but as a voice within the sport. She's someone who's willing to speak truth to power, to stand up when she feels something's wrong, even if it means facing consequences. That's a level of leadership that goes beyond what happens on the court. It's a statement that she's not just here to play the game, she's here to shape it. As Clark continues to rise in prominence, moments like this will likely define her legacy just as much as her on-court achievements. She's not just setting records and winning games, she's challenging the status quo. And in a sport that's still fighting for the recognition and respect it deserves, that kind of leadership is invaluable. Clark isn't afraid to ruffle feathers, and in many ways, that's exactly what women's basketball needs. The question, of course, is how the WNBA will respond. While it's clear that Clark's comments have struck a chord, the league now finds itself in a delicate position. They have to maintain order and uphold the rules, but they also have to recognize the influence Clark holds. The balance between enforcing discipline and managing the relationship with one of their biggest stars will be tricky. Clark's comments have set the stage for a potential showdown between player and league, and it will be fascinating to see how things play out. For now, though, one thing is certain: Caitlin Clark isn't going to back down. Whether it's fighting through a double team or standing up to the league, she's proven time and time again that she's willing to take on any challenge. Her recent comments have only solidified that reputation, and if anything, they've made her even more of a force to be reckoned with. It's moments like these that show why Clark is such a special player. She's not just content with playing the game. She's determined to leave her mark on it. As the sports world watches this situation unfold, there's a sense that this could be a pivotal moment, not just for Clark, but for the WNBA as a whole. The league has made strides in recent years, but there are still hurdles to overcome, and Clark's comments have brought some of those issues to the forefront. Whether or not her suspension stands, the conversation she started is one that won't go away anytime soon. In many ways, Clark's outspokenness is a reflection of her generation. Athletes today are more empowered than ever to speak their minds, to challenge authority, and to use their platforms for change. Clark is part of that movement, and she's showing that she's not just going to be a passive participant in her career. She's going to be an active voice, one that demands to be heard. It's a bold approach, but if there's one thing we know about Clark, it's that boldness is kind of her thing. Her comments, laced with frustration and defiance, have set the stage for what could be a turning point. Whether or not the lead bends to her will remains to be seen, but one thing is clear: Caitlin Clark isn't afraid to challenge the system. In fact, her willingness to push back against authority could very well signal a new era in the WNBA, one where players take a more active role in shaping the rules and policies that affect them. The league, while focused on growing its brand and expanding its fan base, will have to reckon with the voices of its most prominent players. And as Clark has shown, those voices are becoming harder to ignore. Clark's frustration doesn't seem to come from a place of rebellion for rebellion's sake. Instead, it feels more like a demand for fairness, a call for the WNBA to treat its players with the respect and consistency they deserve. Her suspension may have been the spark, but the fire she started is about something much larger than just one incident. It's not the future of the league, the treatment of its players, and the standards to which they're held. It's that confidence, that swagger, that makes her such a compelling figure. She doesn't just play basketball, she owns it. She walks onto the court like it's her stage, and she performs with the kind of assurance that only the greats possess. That same assurance carried over into her comments, as she spoke with the authority of someone who knows her worth and isn't afraid to defend it. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.